today we are working with some very special holiday roses called They're unique only to Floral at the moment. I hope that no one else gets a hold of them. Yeah, I want to talk to you about reflexing roses and why I love reflexing. So I'll show you the difference between a regular, just straight out of the carton rose and a reflexed rose, and why it's worth the time to do it. This is the rose straight out of the carton. And as you can see, all of the calyxes. Calyx is this harder, usually damaged, not always, but usually damaged petal that will get stripped off. That is out of the carton, and over time, after it's been processed, will open up. And this is reflexed. Pretty big difference. Even when they open, they don't quite look like a reflexed rose. And that's because the petals don't naturally peel back the way that we mechanically, as florists, peel them back. So it's well worth the time, in my opinion. I have calculated it usually takes anywhere between 15-30 seconds each rose, depending on how fast you are, to do that. So there we have it. I will show you how to reflex, and I'll also talk a little bit about different sizes and how that might influence the size rose that you choose as well. This is a 50 centimeter Red Panther reflexed rose. This is a 60 centimeter Red Panther reflexed rose. And it's kind of hard to tell in this picture, but it is definitely bigger. The stem itself is bigger, is thicker, is longer as well. 50 and 60 cents. So 50 is the indicator of the length or height of the stem. So when you're purchasing roses, 50 is pretty short, 40 is even shorter, 60 is a pretty standard size. They go up to 70, sometimes 80 or more. So if you need some really tall stems, but generally speaking, I tend to go for 50 centimeter roses. The height of the stem is generally long enough so that I can do something to make it kind of tall and impressive, but not too short. Yeah, 60 centimeter. I don't tend to go for 60 centimeter roses because, again, the stem is thicker and the head is larger. And if I'm doing all one type flower, I tend to go for 50 centimeter. But for this holiday arrangement that I'm doing, I chose specifically to do 50 and 60 because then I'll get a variation in size, which will create a little bit more interest and texture in the arrangement. It's subtle, but it's noticeable. You know, when you have a large and then a small, and then you have that alternating, it does create more depth and interest in your arrangement. So now let's show you how to reflex. I start by stripping off all of the greenery with my floral knife. Well, very first thing, actually, I sterilize my knife. To me, it's the easiest way to keep your tool really sharp as well as clean. I sterilize it with 90% alcohol, diluted with water in a spray bottle. You just give it a couple of spritz, let it sit for 30 seconds or so, and then wipe it off, wipe it clean. And you'd be amazed at how much sharper and easier it is to cut when your tool is really clean. So I do that a lot while I'm arranging, and definitely before I process. So I've stripped all the greens off. And for this particular rose, it's very actually similar to a Freedom. It's a very popular rose that florists use to reflex because it's easy to reflex and it looks beautiful reflexed. There are many roses that do not reflex and do not look good reflexed. So it's a little bit of trial and error to find out which rose will do what, but generally speaking, a cabbage rose cabbage shaped, which are kind of like the more rounder, squattier heads, are not gonna reflex very well or look that great reflexed. So kind of have these conventional, a little bit taller and longer a bloom versus shorter and wider. Taller and longer usually reflex better. But if you're ever in doubt, ask your local wholesaler. Sometimes they know whether some of these rose varieties reflex well or not. So let's get started. I'm gonna start by taking off the outer calyx, and then I kind of look at the head to see how the swirl sits, and that'll help me determine how many petals I actually want to take off before I start reflexing. I'm gonna try with this. I think this is a good shape, and it'll give me about 6 or so petals to reflex. I'm gonna get you in close here. I think for a beginner, it's good to actually take these off. That way it's really easy for you. Place your thumb at the bottom of the petal and your pointer finger inside and kind of just gently push down. You'll feel it naturally kind of want to fold over at that little base part. And then you just go on to the next, same thing. And I kind of let the pointer finger guide how it's folded while the bottom thumb creates the safety, or the safety, the cushion, if you will, for the petal so that it doesn't break. Look how gorgeous that's already starting to look. I mean, it's insane. And then you keep doing that and keep twisting the rose as you go along. Oh my God, this is so gorgeous. And you'll notice that some of them fold together a little bit, like they overlap, but you just keep, and just try not to crush the petal. The best thing to do I hope you were able to see that really, really well. So we have a reflexed rose here. Ooh, girl. I love it so much. And then I give it a sharp cut. For the 50 centimeter, for any rose really, especially if you're, I generally think keeping the length is always good. That is usually what you're paying for. Not always, but most stems come with like a length price factor. So for 50 centimeter, I tend to drag the knife very long, and I get a very sharp, long 45-degree angle, and then put it in warm water with a scoop of floral food into a gallon of water. Taking a little bit more off of this one because some of the petals were pretty hard. Stripping off those greens. And I tend to go to the next petal that is ready and exposed. This one is ready and exposed. It's better to honestly let these sit out of water for a while before you reflex them. That way the petals are really soft and malleable, because if they're straight from market or straight out of water, They may already be firmed up a little bit, which will create breakage in the petals more easily, and you don't want that. You want the petals to be really soft. And then by the time you cut them, they will rehydrate and they will firm up into the shape that you've reflexed. Oh my God, so good. Let's keep doing this. I'll show you again how I cut. Drag it long. I like a long cut. It keeps the rose nice and long and also creates a nice, clean, long shape. Then you'll see sometimes they kind of layer over each other, and it's a little bit harder to have them just fully exposed. So you kind of have to gently work your way. See how it's catching onto the other petal? So you have to make sure not to damage that petal. And then go to the next one that is ready and open. You might have to go back. I forget what this is called. I can't believe I forget what that's called, but sometimes that actually does interfere and makes the petals lift up. So I do think it's a good idea to remove them, but again, it's a little bit more time consuming. So let's see if I can show you a general flow without talking of how to reflex. Long cut. Peeling off the hardened calyx leaves, getting down to the softer innard parts. It's kind of like an artichoke. Inside is softer, the outer petals are harder. So exciting. It's so good. So I think that's it. We'll do a couple of shots of me just reflexing, so maybe you can watch my hands and see how my hand works while I'm reflexing it. Maybe that'll help you. I'm a very visual learner myself, so when I watch other people doing what they do, I always watch how they do it. Talking is less useful to me, watching how people do things. So I'll do a little portion where I'm just reflexing, not talking, and hopefully that'll help.